All right, what's up, guys? We're live here at Wrestling Reaction. The day before the 2026 WWE Royal Rumble. Decided we'd hop back in for a little live show here, about a half hour. We did this before WrestleMania. Last year, you guys enjoyed it. I think we did this before SummerSlam as well, with our final predictions for the 2026 WWE Royal Rumble. We did the video on the channel earlier this week, making picks, and you guys know who I picked for some of these matches. Wanted to share some, again, additional thoughts on maybe how this is all going to unfold. I think there will be some surprises, we know, maybe not just with the entrance for this particular match, but also could there be some surprises in the other matches on the undercard and all that, whether it's AJ Styles and Gunther, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, all that good stuff. So I'll let you guys hop on in. We'll discuss. It has been a while since we've done one of these live shows. We are planning on doing a live show after the Royal Rumble tomorrow. So be sure to turn on your notifications so you know when we do that. But yes, it is setting up, I think, to be what should be one of WWE's best PLEs of the year. And I say that in January, knowing we have a lot more to go this year. But I do really look at this and feel like if you look at the card, both the Rumble matches should deliver based on the talent involved. You've got two matches, with McIntyre and Zayn and AJ and Gunther that should also be excellent. They're going to get plenty of time, I think. So I think this is going to be a really good show, and I'd be surprised if it's not. Of course, what the Rumble's always remembered for, though, is who wins the Rumble. And it's going to probably depend on if you like the winner, if you don't like the winner. If you guys watch the video that I did, you know my picks, and I'm trying to think, in my final prediction, should I change my picks? I'm not going to just yet, because I think Roman Reigns is probably the best choice for the men's winner, and I do still think Liv Morgan makes sense to be the women's winner. And I kind of explained in the video why that is. I think Roman versus Punk is a huge match you could do for WrestleMania. I think Liv, just the dynamic of the Judgment Day and all this other stuff, I think Liv winning is a better option than, let's say, a Roxanne or something right now, although I think Roxanne is like the wild card in this whole thing. I wouldn't be stunned if she won, but I think it's probably Liv's opportunity. She's been the runner-up for how long now, right? Like, that's kind of been the story for Liv, is just all these runner-ups that she's had. So I think Liv winning would be something that makes a lot of sense here too. But we are talking surprises, right? And I didn't really get into a lot of those on the predictions video we did this week. But if you are looking at, big surprises in this thing, I think, there are some pretty good options. And again, you guys can weigh in the comments. I know you already have on the other videos. I'm curious, like, just how many of these shocking surprises we're going to get. Shout out to Michael here. Good to see you jumping back in, Michael. But yeah, we know, and Robert's here too. And I think it's like, Jericho seems like someone that, you guys understand the situation with Chris Jericho. I'd be stunned probably if he's not in this thing. And I'd also probably be pretty surprised if he's not number 30. I would think if you're thinking about like how WWE can do this with the specific Rumble matches, I think that having Chris Jericho come in at number 30 gets his own little countdown, just like, it would for any of his other returns he's ever had. It just makes too much sense. So I'd be pretty surprised if he's not in this thing. Maybe it's too predictable, but it's the Rumble. You want to have these big surprises. Some of the people in the men's match, I think that, we could see. I don't know how big of a surprise LA Knight would be, right? I mean, these are the kind of guys that are just going to return for the Rumble. You could see an LA Knight, I think, Chad Gable. I could see him coming back for this thing. Guys like that who maybe haven't been focused on as much here recently, or they've been off TV for whatever reasons. I think LA Knight would be one of the biggest ones you could do, just in terms of like the guys who have been off WWE TV for a bit. He has everything, to now go at the Vision again and all this other stuff. So I think that one's kind of something to keep an eye on there with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the final four, maybe, perhaps, in this match. Michael brings up Finn Balor, and I think that's kind of an interesting one here too, where, the way they played it out, right, I could see Balor getting into this thing. And, I don't think they bring up the whole idea that the Rumble's full unless you do something to somehow open up a slot. And that's why it's, it gets a little complicated, right? Because I mentioned like the Sami Zayn element and all this. I think the Sami Zayn thing is, how do you get a Sami and, Balor and all this other stuff? So I think we're going to see, and you may be right, Michael, like maybe you bring back the Demon, you do it that way. We know we're getting to another Punk versus Balor match, because otherwise, why would they have done what they did on Monday on Raw? So either Balor finds this match, or they kind of use that to get to another match between the two in Chicago at Elimination Chamber. So it's going to be one of the two, I think, on that. But other like huge surprises for the men's match, like I can't really, I guess, pick any huge ones. You're going to get some of the NXT guys, right? I mean, I would think there's probably one or two NXT guys. You may get Powerhouse Hobbs from AEW, who just signed with WWE. He could be in there. I think, Royce Keys, that's the name he's going by. So he'd be a good addition, but I don't know. Like, do you want to bring him in and not have him win the Rumble? Like, it's kind of that same thing. So, but you could see it for sure. So let me get to a couple other comments here. Remember, when I do these live shows, it's really just reacting to you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Red's here saying, thinks Jericho's going to be there, and Final Four is Roman Reigns, Braun Breaker, Obafemi, and Cody Rhodes. I think that's probably about as good of a Final Four as you could pick. In all honesty, like, that's a pretty solid Final Four. I think yesterday someone asked me, who would I pick for my Final Four? I think I had Zayn in there. But again, a lot of that is me just trying to figure out how they're going to do this whole Sami Zayn thing. And I told you guys in the prediction video, like, I just think if Zayn doesn't beat Drew McIntyre, I don't know how he's not in the Rumble. Like, and I know, yes, like, and look, people are asking, like, Sami entering the Rumble. He's not officially entered yet, but my thinking is that how can you just have this guy lose and, not be in the Rumble? Like, I think you've got to somehow find a way to get him in there if he loses that match. Like I said, they've already said the Rumble's full and all this other stuff. Maybe Sami Zayn just loses and that's it. But I think that would be such a wasted opportunity to not at least put him in the match if Drew McIntyre cheats to win or something like that. And that's why I think what's going to be really important here is seeing, like, what matches go on where. If they start with, Sami and Drew, then I'm going to be like, yep, here's what I'm going to feel pretty confident that they're going to find a way to get Sami in the Rumble. But if they don't, then okay, maybe Sami's just going to lose to Drew again and he's 0-12 or whatever, and we're done. That may be it, guys. I don't know. But I don't know. That's why I thought initially him even being in this match, period, I know why they're doing it, but, I think there was more value in Sami being in the Rumble than him being in this championship match if he's not going to win. They could shock us and he wins, right? That could be the huge surprise we're talking about is, Sami beat Drew. But I gave you all the reasons in the predictions video why I just don't think that's going to be the case. But maybe it happens. Like, they've added some more unpredictability to this thing. I'll give them that. So we'll find out. I think that's why, I said this too. I'm like, it is a long time, but you could actually see them playing this out for another year with Sami Zayn. Now, there's a lot you got to do to get there, but remember, WrestleMania next year is in Saudi Arabia as well. So could they hold off Sami's win till next year? You're really banking on a lot of great ideas to keep people invested that long in the Sami Zayn chase. But you know what? They've been there for a while now, right? I mean, think back to, what was that? Is it 3 now? All at the Elimination Chamber against Roman. So, and people are still, I think, going to be invested in this run for Sami. So I don't know, guys. To me, I think he needs to be in the Rumble if he loses to McIntyre. How they get him there, I don't know. But a lot of that, I think, is really dependent on how the match plays out. If Drew screws over Sami Zayn, if he cheats to win, then I think you're going to have something that gets him in the Rumble somehow. Or maybe not. Or maybe they're just, people go home disappointed, and that's all they get from Sami Zayn. So we'll see. All right, Michael asked some questions here, and we'll just start to jump into you guys' questions. I'm going to stay on for another half hour, so we'll kind of have plenty of time to discuss a lot of this. But Michael says, Roman winning the Rumble is setting up for Cody Roman 3. What about The Rock? So, I mean, all reports out there, and believe what you want to believe, right? Not everything's always accurate. We all know this, guys. But I think Roman winning, obviously is more so going to set up Roman and Punk. I think that's probably more realistic because it seems like Cody's going to be in there with McIntyre and Jacob Fatu, the way they've kind of been doing this. So I feel like Cody Roman 3, if it ever happens, I don't know if it's happening this year. Unless, again, Cody were to win the title back at the Elimination Chamber or something like that. That could happen. But I feel like WWE has really wanted to do Punk and Roman one-on-one for a while. And we know they shifted it around last year to do the triple threat with Rollins. But no, they had kind of a story to support that. And so they just need a main event, right? And to me, like, no knock on Cody, Drew McIntyre, Jacob Fatu. That doesn't feel like the Night 2 main event for WrestleMania to me. It's a one-on-one match I think you need in that setting between two big-time stars. And to me, that the only match that qualifies based on your options right now is Roman versus Punk. But that's, again, that's why I'm picking Roman to win. But if they decide to go in another direction, you could swap it around. You know, what if Cody won again and it was Cody versus Punk? They haven't really led us in that direction, so I don't know if I should buy into that. But, you know, I just think Roman's probably the best choice. Because remember, too, Roman's not won the Rumble in over a decade. Like, I mean, this guy got beat by Bronson Reed this year. Like, he's done a lot, I think, to at least have the opportunity to maybe come and have it play out that way. So, I don't know. But, yeah. Yeah, good to see these thoughts back in. Yeah, Roman versus the person who eliminated Roman last year at the Rumble. You had that whole fiasco with Rollins too, and yeah, maybe next year for the Rams. I can't exactly say I'm thrilled at this Super Bowl matchup here between the Patriots and Seahawks. It's not exactly the most appealing to me, but maybe for Patriots and Seahawks fans it is. But the Rams and Patriots, I think, would have been a better choice. But maybe that's just some bias coming in there on that. But I always appreciate you hopping in, man. Let me find some other comments here on this. Michael also mentioned AJ Styles in the Rumble. So I told you guys, this is the match I'm most torn on, right? I think everything's pointing towards AJ retiring here, but I also know it's WWE, and they love to swerve us. They love to give us just some kind of runaround on all this other, and everything, all these reports coming out, you know, about how AJ's filing trademarks and for his name and all this, and now he's going to use it outside of WWE, and you know, you've got Shinsuke Nakamura putting up that post about AJ told him he was going to retire at the Rumble, and like, I just like, this is like WWE and real type stuff here. If you guys have watched the second season, I started watching. I haven't watched the full thing yet, but could they be setting us up for a big swerve here where AJ just beats going through? It could happen, but honestly, the more I think about it, I just don't know. And so if he loses, he's not going to be in the Rumble, right? So I think this match is just kind of it's good that it feels like it's unpredictable, but I also am like, we saw Gunther tap out, and I don't know if they want to do that again with this guy the way they've set it up. I mean, he just retired Cena. He's going to retire AJ, whether it's this match or another match in the future, and he's probably going to end up retiring somebody like Brock, which I think Gunther and Brock is probably your big match that you're headed towards next. So I would think you get something maybe with them in the Rumble, and that, again, is assuming that Gunther's in the Rumble, but these are all questions that we still got to figure out. So, all right, let me catch up on some comments here on this. Let's see what else we got here. So, yeah, let me grab this one. Super Bowl's going to be a blowout. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this one. But, so yes, AJ extending the contract. That was another thing that was out there about how, you know, his contract was set to expire, and, you know, you could do something. You could do something like that, right? Like by the DQ, not the clean pen or something. That could happen. So, like I said, I mean, look, guys, I give them credit. I told you, and you guys know, like, we've not done as many videos on the channel for the past several months. I started to pick up again recently, and only because, like, I've become a little bit more interested again. Like, it just, for a while there, I think it was just kind of such a lull where everything felt predictable and all that. But I'll give them credit. Like, it's a little more unpredictable now. And there are a lot of arguments you can make, I think, for both sides here for pretty much every match on this card, whether it's the title match, whether it's this one, or the two Rumble matches, right? You can pick a couple good winners, at least, in both of those matches. So I like it. All right. Let's grab some other stuff here. RGD here says, I think Sami's winning this year and not next year. Saudi Mania, so the card is going to be stacked. Yeah, that is something to keep in mind too, and we've kind of joked about that. Like, I mean, you could have a lot of like people wrestling next year that are not even currently like active wrestlers. Like The Rock could wrestle next year. Austin could wrestle next year. And again, these are going to be guys that are a year older. And I mean, you never know when that kind of money, as we said, is on the table. So I could see them. I think Sami has to, if he's in the Rumble, right? I told you guys, like in the prediction video, if Sami's in the Rumble, I find it really hard for him not to win this thing. Because then you're going to disappoint people twice. He's going to lose to Drew, and then he's going to lose in the Rumble? Like, what's the story there other than this guy just loses? I mean, it's, you would have to do something pretty drastic not to come out of it and feel like, okay, Sami's not going to be a world champion because this guy just can't win. So that is going to be the tell to me. If he is in this Rumble, I almost think he has to win, even though I picked Roman. Like, I almost think Sami has to win. He has to if he gets put in this Rumble because he gets screwed in the first match. And yeah, I mean, like, that's the story. He's going to go 0-12 against Drew McIntyre. You're going to put him in the Rumble and he's going to lose? Like, boy, think about how hard it is to tell that story. All right? It's like, this guy just can't win. Why should I want him to be the world champion if he can't win? So, yeah, I don't know, guys. I think that's something to keep in mind, too. Here's a good question here from Julio. Asks, who do you think will last a long time in the Rumble? So we have to pick our Royal Rumble Iron Man. I'll let you guys make your picks in the comments, too. Who lasts the longest in this match? I think it's a good question. Let me pull up the Rumble participants list real quick because I want to make sure I'm not forgetting someone. But I think if I had to go with and I'm going to flip this question to another thing, but if I had to go with who's going to eliminate the most people, I think it's going to be Obafemi. I think he's a good choice. Who lasts the longest? An updated list we have right now. So I think the current list we have: Cody, Jacob Fatu. It says Gunther. Is Gunther officially declared for the Rumble? I don't remember. Jey Uso, Rey, Dragon Lee, Penta, Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Austin Theory, Obafemi, Brock Lesnar. Let's see. Of that group right there, who lasts the longest? I'm going to say that maybe it's Braun Breaker. Although I don't know. You want Braun to be like the burst of speed type guy. You don't want him in there for 30 minutes just over laying in the corner. That's a bad choice. Let me take that one back. I could see someone like Logan Paul actually being like one of the longest people in the match. Or you know what? Here's another choice. Jey Uso. Because Jey was the winner last year. And look here, Greg asked the question, thoughts on Jey winning the Rumble. So they've been like teasing that a little bit. Jay's been doing all the stuff on social media about how everybody knew thought he wasn't going to win last year. He's telling him he's going to win it again this year. And I don't think Jay's winning it. But you could see Jey like being one of the early entrants and him lasting and like towards the end just to make people think that he could possibly win this thing again. So there's an underrated choice. Maybe Jey winds up lasting a long time in this thing. So I like that. It's a good question, though. I think there's a lot of interesting options you could have. But I'll go with either, let's say, Jey or even a Logan Paul. I think are decent options on that. Or Cody. Maybe Cody's number one or something. And if Cody gets all the way to the end. I could see that, too. So here's a point here on Jericho. He's still currently on the AEW roster. And they are very good with removing their guys, right? Like, they are very quick on the updates. Like, if somebody's leaving in an hour, he'll be off that thing in 5 minutes. So I think we're going to find out because they have until tomorrow afternoon, right? So I think that's the thing is, if Jericho's contract is up, then, you would almost think like he would have to be removed now because he would have to be in Saudi Arabia at this moment to be able to pull this off. Unless WWE's like, we're going to fly this guy in an hour before showtime, which, that'd be pushing a little bit. But I think, yeah, that's something to consider here. So it's a good point. And that's why I think, too, one of the first things, if you remember, when everybody was talking about Jericho being at the Rumble, someone said it. I don't remember who it was. Like, the thing Jericho doesn't like is predictable surprises, right? He wants the unpredictability. Everyone thinks he's going to show up at number 30 here. So that can be a good thing and a bad thing. If he shows up, great. It's predictable, but it's a good predictable. Like, everybody's excited, blah, blah, blah. But if he doesn't show up, at this point, people have raised their expectations so much. WWE hasn't done anything to promote Jericho except for that Adam Pearce break the walls down comment he did on Twitter for the Stranger Things episode several weeks ago. But they can just be like, hey, we never teased Jericho. So, yeah, I mean, the timing's going to be interesting. So, it's going to be interesting to see if he shows up or not. I hope he does, because I think it'd be kind of fun going into WrestleMania season to see this version of Chris Jericho and this version of WWE together. But we'll see. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, No Smoke here says not going to be mad if Sami wins, just going to leave him winning. And that's, I think, one of the problems they have right now is Sami's just come up short so many times now that he loses to McIntyre. I just don't know what you can do. Like I said, to me, that becomes the thing of, if he loses to Drew, as I said a minute ago, and he doesn't win the Rumble, I don't know how anyone can buy into the story at this point. You know, I think extending this chase even longer is not a great idea. So I don't. That's why I think if he loses and he is in the Rumble, if they put him in there, if they somehow, like I said, get him in there, whatever, I truly think he has to win. But maybe, as Michael says, they can go to the Elimination Chamber and have Sami win. But still, I'm like, do you really want to? I don't know. But I'm not sure about it. So we'll find out. Like I said, I think there are a couple other better options than Sami. I'd put Roman Reigns at the top of that list. You guys know. I think that even having Braun Breaker win it, I'd also, I mentioned this, I'd be fine with like going all the way with someone like Obafemi and just letting the guy come in, destroy people, and be the winner and be that surprise winner. That he'd be more so of a surprise probably for people than Jay was last year, but he is the only guy, I think, of the group that is currently ready to, if you threw him into a main event type spot at a WrestleMania, I'd buy it just because the guy has everything. But I don't know if I see it. But that comes the question too. That's another interesting storyline in this match is who throws him out? How does he get eliminated? Because that's going to set up his story, for WrestleMania. So we'll find. All right, get to some other things. Right hand cam's here. Appreciate right hand cam. Yeah, it's I think this Rumble is kind of, like I said, I think there's a lot of ways you could go with this stuff. And like we've said that every year, but I think this year, because we felt like we were headed towards Cody versus Roman, and maybe we still get there, right? Again, the reports are not always accurate. But if you buy into the rumors and the reports, like, it doesn't seem like we're headed there. And if we're not, then that just kind of, the whole WrestleMania card, like that trickle-down effect. And somebody else, too, I haven't even mentioned. Seth Rollins, right? We've seen all the interviews, and they've been trying to tell us that Rollins isn't going to be ready and all this stuff. But are we going to buy anything they say about Seth Rollins now when it comes to what happened at SummerSlam last year? Why would I believe anything they say about Seth Rollins when they sit there and pulled off what they did at SummerSlam, right? The ruse of the century. So I think there's a possibility Seth Rollins gets involved in the match. Maybe even not as a participant, right? Maybe he just comes out and he causes Breaker to get eliminated or something like that, and then boom, here we go. Seth Breaker. Which that was my thinking. I've told you guys, like, if you're picking your bigger matches, maybe let's do that, okay? If you had to pick your WrestleMania main events right now, we can do this, have some fun with this in the comments, okay? And then I'm going to get back to Red's comment about the Women's Rumble. We haven't really touched on that much, but we'll get to that in a second. If you had to pick your WrestleMania main events right now, what would they be? And that's where I think, like I said, based on how they're playing it up, I think Roman versus Punk is one of them. And the other one, to be honest, like, I don't know. Like, I don't have a great feel. And I don't know that Cody versus Drew versus Jacob Fatu, I don't know that it main events night one. I mean, it's Cody, so you're like, it probably has to. Maybe that's true. You can give Jacob Fatu a little rub here. You put him in the main event of WrestleMania. That'd be good. I mean, the guy's been fantastic. You guys, we talked about him for a couple of years now. He's been excellent. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's that simple. Is there a women's match that we think would have that kind of appeal? Would they do Bianca versus Jade? If that's the match, if Bianca returns here, would they do Bianca versus Jade as the night one main event? I don't think that's a terrible idea either. Is Jade ready for that? That's a question that we'll have to answer because her title reign has been pretty much nothing. Not her fault. She hasn't faced anyone. So, yeah, I mean, I was curious, do they do Seth versus Breakker? But I just, like, you guys, like, are they going to do that again where, like, you have another main event that's not for a title? They have so many titles. Like, not to AEW's level, but they got a lot of titles. And I'm like, you kind of need to have one of those in that first night spot. I don't know if Seth versus Breakker, it's a big match, but is it bigger than, one of the other title matches you could do? And that's where, like, I don't think Seth versus Breakker should main event over Cody versus Drew versus Fatu. And I'd also be fine. This is where, too, like, Jay won the Rumble last year, right? But he didn't main event WrestleMania. He was in the opening match. So they can push it all they want. It's like it's going to main event. But give me the person in the actual main event. That's why, like, if Liv wins the Women's Rumble, she needs to maybe be in the main event of night one. If Bianca wins the Women's Rumble, she needs to be in the main event of night one. How many other people could meet that? Rhea would probably, meet that expectation. You could see her in a main event. But not sure if there's a lot of others you would put in that spot. So, and that's where, like, your current two champions are Stephanie Vaquer and Jade. Are either of them ready for that main event WrestleMania type level spot? Don't know. So, I think it's a really good question, and that's why I'm curious to see how they play this out for sure on these. But yeah, and you may be right here. Maybe they just do the triple threat at Elimination Chamber or something. That could happen. I don't know. I think it seems odd, but, like, I don't love the Cody versus Drew versus Fatu match. I don't know why. It'd probably be a great match, but I just don't love it as a WrestleMania match. Maybe I'm just old school and I like the one-on-one stuff. But maybe it's just me. We'll see. Red said here too, by the way, mentioning the Women's Rumble. Final four are going to be Rhea, Io, Liv, and Bianca. I like that. I like that group. I'm trying to think of who else would be there. I think Tiffany Stratton has a chance to be in that group somewhere. I know No Smoke just brought up Roxanne. I could see Roxanne in there too. But like, as we mentioned, the story of this match, I think, is going to be a lot centered around the Judgment Day in that group and how that unfolds. I think a lot's going to be centered around the tag team division. Look how well they built up the tag team division this year. That was one of the things they did well this year, I say, 2025. Having all the different partners with Charlotte and Alexa, Rhea and Io. You've got Bayley and Lyra, Asuka and Kairi, Naya. Like, there's someone I forgot of that group. But, yeah, like, you have all these different teammates, and that's where it's going to be interesting to see how they all coexist in this Rumble. But, yeah, like, the Reds' final four of Rhea, Io, Liv, and Bianca. I could definitely see Rhea, Liv, Bianca in there. I think Io probably has a good shot to possibly be there as well. But that's where I wonder, would they throw in a Roxanne? I think AJ Lee and Becky are going to basically eliminate each other somehow, so I don't even see them in the final four. So I think those are probably pretty good options there, I would say, from that final four choice. I could definitely see it playing out that way. And two, they always, I feel like Jay was kind of that person this past year, right? They're going to throw someone in there that feels like they're kind of maybe out of left field, maybe one you're not expecting. That's where, like, Tiffany, to me, could be that one. If she comes back, which I would expect, this is probably a good time. She feels like LA Knight to me in that, like, been off for a little bit. Now's the time to come back, get that big Royal Rumble pop, and, you're kind of off and running into the next thing for her. So, it's probably a good choice. I may go with that same Final Four. I think that's a good group. Because I think Roxanne's probably out of there by then. But if Liv and Roxanne are both in the Final Four, then I become a lot more intrigued by wondering which of them are going to throw out the other. And would they go with a Roxanne type win, as No Smoke says here? I do. Like, I think that's the one to keep in mind. If there's going to be a Jey Uso from last year, I don't know that happens in the Men's Rumble this year. I almost think it can happen in the Women's Rumble, and I think Roxanne's the choice. So I'll say that. If you're going to get kind of that surprise winner, I think it's Roxanne. I don't know if I see just a big surprise winner in the men's match, but it could happen. There's a lot of talent there. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, Michael's going with that Final Four too: Bianca, Io, Rhea, and Liv. So I like it. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Robert's going to go with Bianca winning setup, Bianca versus Jade. Men's winner, not sure yet. Yeah, that's the simple too to get there is, and I'll say that too. Like I picked Liv, but there is a thinking here that if you want to do Bianca versus Jade as the main event of night one, I do think Bianca should win the Rumble because you want to go ahead and have that match basically in everyone's mind is, oh, okay, we're going to get this as the main event. Like of one of these nights is Bianca versus Jade. And don't forget too, we've had a, 6+ month break in the story between these two because Bianca's been out with the injury. So you also need a little bit of time to get to that, where that's why like Bianca winning Elimination Chamber, you're not going to have as much time to tell the Bianca Jade saga, right? So if you want to have more kind of runway here to get back into the story and give it a little bit more oomph to it that you couldn't get when Bianca was out for 6+ months, I think Robert may be onto something here. Like Bianca may be the better choice, honestly. So I think, yeah, that's something else to think about, which I until now I wasn't even considering. But yeah, that may be something why Bianca's the winner actually, because I think you want to have that match set up soon. You don't want to wait because you need some time to tell that backstory between those two and how they're going to interact and all this other stuff, right? Because the tension was there between those two before Bianca went out. Now you really need to heat that up into a match like this. So, yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, the Judgment Day breakup, I think, it's a big part of this Rumble. And look, it's probably a big part of Finn's story, right? I mean, that's why you kind of have the Punk and Balor dynamic that they have going on right now. So Punk's trying to tell Finn he needs to get away from the Judgment Day and Dominic and all these people. So you're trying to get Finn back on the right track, but, Liv's been stirring up stuff and all this. So, yeah, Liv is playing, she's trying to play them, but at the same time, I almost, as I've told you guys, like the idea of Liv kind of also being played by Roxanne, because I think Roxanne is the person you need to have as the one that gets booed in this thing. Like, too many people want to cheer Liv, and if she wins the Rumble, she's going to get a ton of cheers. But I think Roxanne can be more of that heelish. She can be what Liv was. Like, that's what I really think. It's like she can be the next Liv Morgan. Roxanne can, and I think that's how they need to play it. Liv turning on Roxanne to me is just way too obvious. I think you need to have it be the other way, where Roxanne takes it to a level we did not think we would ever see with Roxanne, and which is kind of the way people thought of Liv. So I like to see it play out like that. But we'll find out. That's why I'm fascinated by this Women's Rumble, especially those two. Those are the two I'm most kind of interested to see how they go with it. So, all right, I'm gonna hop off in about probably 5 minutes or so. So any other questions, comments you guys have? Again, I just want to get back into the groove of doing the live stuff. We do try to do these sometimes before these big PLEs and all that. And as I said, the plan for tomorrow is to do something right after the Royal Rumble. So if you guys want to hop in, plan on going live, we'll do obviously a much longer reaction show usually for the PLEs. So we'll stay on for a bit after that, talking about everything and how it unfolded there in Riyadh. So yeah, SmackDown, I guess if you're overseas, if you're not in the United States, I think you can, SmackDown starts, I want to say, in like 30 minutes or something like that. So you can watch it early. If you're international, you can watch it, I guess, on Netflix or wherever. But yeah, so SmackDown's coming up, and SmackDown's gotten better. This 3-hour experiment, I was not thrilled about it, but SmackDown's been better since the start of the year. Maybe that's because my guy Trick Williams is on there. We haven't done a lot of videos, as said, over the past month, but you guys should know. I'm a big Trick Williams fan. I think this guy is going to be fantastic on the main roster. Already has been. But Trick's another one where I don't think he's winning the Rumble this year, but I'd like to see him get a good showing. And I also want to know who he's going to face at WrestleMania. This is where, like, this entire group of Trick, Obafemi, like Javon Evans, kind of the big three that they called up from NXT on the men's side. I think, they have to have something pretty good in store for these guys for WrestleMania, because they are kind of your future. And some of them are your now. They've already put Trick into this, 4-way at Saturday night's main event. Oba's being presented as the next big thing. Like, he feels like the next Brock Lesnar. And so, yeah, So I want to see how they all kind of come across. I could see those three interacting too. You could have a Rumble spot where those three interact: Oba, Trick, and Evans. So we'll see. Michael asks, what's the take on MFT versus the Wyatt's? Well, I can't say it's been my favorite thing in the world, but it's one of those where, like with SmackDown, some of this stuff has lasted for like so long. Like some of these feuds I feel like have been going on for just such a long amount of time that it's just like you're just still going slow motion with some of this. And I think, yeah, like to me, I just want to see kind of. I like Solo. I told you guys, Solo was someone that I know initially people just hated because he was kind of being thrust into that Roman Reigns role, and you were expecting him to play the leader of the group of the bloodline and everything. But I just think Solo has a lot to give. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a WrestleMania main eventer 8 years in a row or anything, but I think when you let Solo's personality come out, he's a lot better. I think the whole Lantern thing, like that's been interesting because Solo's been able to be a little more devious and that kind of stuff, but I just, man, both of these groups, the MFTs, the war paint and all this other stuff, like and maybe it's for me too. It's like I was a big Jeff Cobb fan, and he comes in as whatever JC Mateo and all this, and he's wearing the paint, and it's just such a different type feel. And it's also like they're not the Bloodline, and the Bloodline were, that story, which yes had its ups and downs, It's just it's light, right? It's the light version of the Bloodline. So I like Solo. Not saying I have anything against the guys, but I'm a big Solo fan. I think he does well with what he has to work with. So yeah. So we'll see how long are this. It's going to keep going because they just won the tag titles, right? And so we'll keep going with this. But all right, I'll grab this one before I hop off here in a few. But when do I think the final boss is returning? So I did that video too. What was that, last week? The reports out there, the Rock's comments on, he's being asked about is he going to wrestle at, Saudi Mania next year in 2027. And, he's not shooting it down, of course, but I think The Rock probably does wrestle next year at WrestleMania. I'd be surprised if he doesn't at this point. But I don't know if he's coming back anytime soon. Now, I say that knowing this Rumble tomorrow is in Saudi Arabia, and, The Rock could show up then. I just don't see it necessarily. If he didn't come back for WrestleMania last year, I don't see him coming back anytime soon. But it's The Rock. Anytime. He can just make a call. Hey, get an Oscar. So I'm coming back. Could happen. But I'll say this. I'm nowhere near as interested in The Rock's return as I was a year ago. I just think all the positive momentum he had built up after WrestleMania 40 is gone. It just didn't work out too well. So, all right. We're going to go Brock Lesnar. I haven't really mentioned Lesnar, but he's obviously too, like if you're picking a Final Four, not having Brock in there is probably, how do you get him out? But I think that's where, like, are they going to go for this Gunther versus Brock thing? I feel like that's the only match for Brock at WrestleMania. And, who else would it be? You could do Brock versus Obafemi if you wanted to. Again, put Obafemi in that position. You could do that. Maybe you want to do Brock versus Braun, but I feel like Gunther is probably a pretty good choice, unless they decide to hold that off until SummerSlam this year, which, remember, SummerSlam's in Minneapolis, Brock's hometown. So if Gunther retire Brock Lesnar, it's going to happen probably at SummerSlam. So, but yeah, Brock being there at the end could happen too. Just please don't give me another Roman Brock match. That's all I ask for. And please don't give me Roman versus Brock as the final two. I don't need these two together that much. I'm over it. So I don't want that. If I had to pick the final two, all right, we picked our final four. Who's the final two? I think there's a compelling story if you do Roman versus Sami, given the history between those two at the Rumble in 2023. Sami hits him with a chair. Maybe Roman eliminates him. All of a sudden we get the bad guy, Tribal Chief. He's back again. I'd love to see it. Maybe it's Roman versus Braun, because I could see, here's what I think is going to happen. I'll give you my quick prediction. If they do Roman versus Punk at WrestleMania this year, I think Roman's going to beat Punk, and then I think Braun Breaker is going to beat Roman for his first world championship. I think that's the play. I think Braun beating Roman Reigns is bigger than Braun beating CM Punk. So I think that's how you do it. Whenever that match is, I don't know. Maybe you do it at SummerSlam. Maybe that's your two big matches. Gunther versus Brock, Roman versus Breakker. 2-night SummerSlam, there are your two main events. Boom, right there. Could see that happening. But I think Roman versus Braun is, to me, the best option for your final two. So, yeah, I like that. There you go. All right, guys. I've got to hop off here. Again, I want to just kind of jump back on for a little bit, get your thoughts live. Always have a lot more fun doing that than just, listen, I enjoy reading the comments, but it's just more fun to interact live. And we are planning on doing that tomorrow. So remember, turn on your notifications. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that like button as well. Helps out the channel. Planning on doing something live right after the Rumble tomorrow. We'll go for a bit. Break down all the action, everything that unfolds there. So always appreciate you hopping on. And like I said, I appreciate you being patient. I know this channel has been consistent over the past 4 or 5 months, but I told you why. I just have not been as invested in WWE right now. But it's starting to pick back up again. It's WrestleMania season, so I like the way they're doing some things better than they were kind of, a little while ago. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at on that. So excited to hop back on and chat with you guys. Always enjoy it. So, and Robert mentions, what about Obafemi? Quickly. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If he's not in that final two, right, who eliminates him? That's the big question, and that's one of the ones I have circled the most. Who does he face at WrestleMania? We're going to find out. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Michael. Always, you've been here from day one, I think. So, appreciate the support of the channel. And again, hopefully I get fun stuff in the works for you guys. We're also going to do something for WrestleMania season I think you're going to enjoy. I've been working on it this week. We're going to go back and we're going to rank every single WrestleMania main events ever. Because I am so fascinated to see what our list would look like. So be thinking about that. We're going to have a fun series we're going to put out. We rank all the WrestleMania main events and see what we can come up with on that. So, all right. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to you soon tomorrow for a Royal Rumble reaction show. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon here at Wrestling Reaction.